Good morning, everyone. I'm going to speak slowly, not because I'm speaking in English, but because I am a little bit nervous. So I hope that is okay with you. So just to get started, I'm going to show just a short video which introduces, I suppose, our case study at Bank of Ireland and also shows some of the senior leadership in the organisation talking about this.
Neuroinclusion is so important to us at Bank of Ireland. We've got an ambition to be one of the best places to work in Ireland. And the way that we express that to our colleagues is we want to be a place that is welcoming to all, to come and work at the bank. And then for people who do work at the bank, we want them to have every opportunity to thrive.
So I'm delighted to be here to help launch Bank of Ireland's new Neuroinclusion strategy. This is so important for so many people in every part of their lives, and it's great to see businesses leading to make sure that the workplace is truly accessible.
Research tells us that about 10% of the Irish society are neurodivergent, and a further 18% people have someone close to them who's neurodivergent. So this impacts really a lot of lives.
We're all neurodiverse, so being more neuro-inclusive removes stigma at work and provides a fair opportunity for everyone to thrive.
We interact with thousands of customers every day across our branch network, and I want to ensure that every customer feels welcomed and our colleagues in the front line feel supported and are aware of what's important to our customers.
Neuroinclusion in the workplace is important to me because colleagues like myself or other colleagues out there feel heard and understood, and we feel like we fit in somewhere when we might not have felt like that before.
Okay. So, to start, just a little bit about the Bank of Ireland. So this year we are 241 years old. So we've been operating in Ireland for that time and operating in the UK for 50 years. We have 4 million customers and we have 10,000 colleagues working for us in the markets we're operating in. We have small offices in the UK, in France, in Germany, and also in Spain. We've not been allowed to open an office in Italy yet, but I will definitely choose Milan if we do. So the reason why I talk about the 241 years is we're in the Irish economy for that long. And we've also, I suppose, been there, through the ups and the downs in the Irish economy. But we see ourselves as a company as having a role to play for our colleagues, our customers, and for society to thrive in Ireland. And this is just a nice picture of our flagship building. We do actually have a working office in there and a significant number of vaults, which have very kind of legacy meaning in Ireland. And when we incorporated the state in the early 1900s, the treaty was actually signed there as well. We've been working on diversity and inclusion for a long time now. We have made progress across gender, ethnic minority, intergenerational, LGBTQ+, supporting families at work, and also around intergenerational issues. We still have more work to do, but last year we looked at our strategy for inclusion and diversity, and we started to think about how can we push to become a very sustainable company? How can we push ourselves further around leveraging inclusion and diversity to serve our customers better, and to really push on ESG in the organisation in a much more holistic way. And we started to think about neuroinclusion. We saw all the statistics telling us that 15 to 20% of the global population is neurodivergent. And we also saw all the statistics, which I think you mentioned as well, Alberto, related to unemployment and underemployment. And we started to think maybe this is the next place for us to go with our work, because it also means 20% of the global customer base is neurodivergent, so we could really start to serve our colleagues, our customers, and society better if we focus on neurodiversity. We did need to build a business case. You can't just decide one morning we're going to take on this big program of work. We did have some people to convince within our organisation. And so to build on the data, we did our own little piece of market research in Ireland. There was actually no data in Ireland around neurodivergence. There was data on specific conditions like autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, but there was no data around neurodiversity. So we conducted an external poll via market research company, and that poll came back telling us that 9% of the population in Ireland is neurodivergent. And then furthermore, and this is a really interesting statistic for us, 26% of people are neurodivergent or are directly related to somebody who is neurodivergent. So that said to us, potentially 900 colleagues at the Bank of Ireland are neurodivergent, but 26%, more than 1 in 4, have a direct relative who is neurodivergent or are neurodivergent themselves. And they're coming to work with this every day. I am one of those people. I have a neurodivergent child. And it does have implications, actually, for you and for work and for flexibility and things that you need. We also asked if neurodivergent people had revealed at their workplace that they are neurodivergent, and 48% of the neurodivergent people who responded to that poll said they had not told anybody at all in their workplace. So this meant they're not getting access to support, just moral and emotional support as you do from your colleagues. They're not getting access to the accommodations they need, which could help them thrive at work. And also, for the business, we would be missing out, right? While people are masking and not showing their authentic selves, we're missing out on their talent and their capabilities. We asked colleagues internally to tell us, colleagues who are neurodivergent, what their experience was. And these verbatims on this other side of the slide show you the real comments of colleagues at Bank of Ireland as we started this work. And I would summarise here, I see loneliness, I see isolation, I see a lack of psychological safety for neurodivergent people. And again, it repeated in that business case the fact that we were not allowing this opportunity for these people to thrive, bring their full skills to work, and we weren't creating the right safe environment for them. So that really was, I think, the influencing point for Bank of Ireland to say, this is a huge issue. It's a huge issue for the company, but it's a huge issue for our customer base as well. And that led us into really starting on this work. So I'm going to hand over to Clementina for a moment. We have a brilliant partnership with auticon around this work, and I'd like Clementina just to talk through our neuroinclusion maturity assessment, which was how you held up the mirror, I think, to us in Bank of Ireland.
We'll do a few swapsies, so also just wanted to pause. Io sono italiana, se serve qualcosa, c'è qualcosa che non era chiaro o qualcosa da... Ok, perfetto. And I will do it half and half. I'm much more used to... Sì, prego. Se abbiamo dei dati di... In Irlanda, no. Do we have data on dyslexia in particular? In Ireland, I don't have it here right now. It is usually the highest of the conditions. It's the one that's most frequent. So we know, I would say it's probably around 10 to 12 in other countries, but because so in Ireland we found 10%, but this might be underrepresentation. In the UK it's about 15 to 20% overall in neurodivergence, and dyslexia is about 10 to 12. Quindi sì, dicevo, farò un po', però sono molto abituata a parlare in inglese di queste tematiche, quindi perdonatemi per inglesismi. So we started with just having to look at what is the state of neuroinclusion at Bank of Ireland at the moment, because the willingness was there, the curiosity was there, the interest, but of course it was the beginning of the journey, so you didn't know exactly where you were standing, how neuroinclusive are our processes and our people and attitudes and experiences. So we ran a maturity assessment, which is a 360-degree evaluation of neuroinclusion, looking at processes, attitudes, experiences of neurodivergent colleagues and other colleagues as well, and also understanding of neurodiversity. And so this was kind of surveys, and we looked at documentation, and we spoke to a lot of people about the processes. Quindi abbiamo iniziato con questo maturity assessment che facciamo, che include varie fonti dalle quali capiamo dov'è lo stato di neuroinclusione al momento, quindi parliamo con persone neurodivergenti nell'azienda, facciamo dei survey sia per i manager che per gli employees, e guardiamo i processi, parliamo con le persone responsabili per i processi per capire anche qual è il loro stato di comprensione, di conoscenza di neuroinclusione, di neurodiversità, che poi ovviamente avrà un impatto su come vengono strutturati i processi, eccetera, eccetera. So what we then found out from this maturity assessment was that there weren't any conversations, or there were very few conversations happening in the company around neurodiversity. It was a topic that, even though it affected many people, because a lot of people spoke about their personal experience, or someone in the family, or other reasons to be connected to it, there weren't any conversations in the company around neurodiversity. There weren't yet it wasn't called out in particular. There weren't any particular kind of documentations and processes and so on, which makes sense because that's why the project was started. There was also, we found that there was a big interest and willingness to support, and I think in general Bank of Ireland came across as an incredibly willing and wanting to support company, both from the manager's side and also from HR point of view. But obviously the tools were still missing at that stage. We didn't have anything, or you didn't have anything yet in this particular area. Actually, you did have a lot of support mechanisms in place, but they maybe weren't consciously used yet to support neurodiversity. We also found there was sometimes a disconnect between managers, a perception of how much they were supporting already neurodiversity and how much neurodivergent employees felt supported. And this was also important to then also show managers to say, okay, actually, maybe you need to learn a bit more about neurodiversity. And so these are the kind of main themes, among others, that came out that then led us to devise a program and a project for that. So I'll just translate that quickly in Italian and then move back to you. Quindi alcuni dei risultati che abbiamo avuto da questo maturity assessment sono stati che non c'erano conversazioni ancora sulla neurodiversità in azienda, malgrado fosse una tematica che ovviamente era importante per varie persone, anche personalmente, però in azienda non se ne parlava. Anche le persone neurodivergenti spesso dicevano non abbiamo parlato con il nostro manager, non ho parlato con nessuno, non mi sembra una tematica che posso affrontare al lavoro, e ovviamente quindi non riuscivano ad avere i supporti necessari. Abbiamo anche scoperto che c'era un'enorme curiosità e interesse da parte dei manager e da parte anche di HR, eccetera, per aiutare, ma ovviamente mancanza di conoscenza e di tool. Anche un altro fattore era che i manager si sentivano già più bravi di quello che in realtà le persone neurodivergenti in azienda gli dessero credito, quindi c'era un po' una differenza nel supporto ricevuto e quello che pensavano di dare. Ecco, scusate.
Thanks, Clementina. So I think just some of my reflections on the Neuroinclusion Maturity Assessment. I don't know if you said this in Italian, but you get a rating of between 1 and 4, and we had a rating of 2, which was passive. And again, I think we had a lot of positive intent around inclusion and diversity generally, but we were not consciously acting and behaving as a neuro-inclusive organisation. And I think the positive intent, right, it really helped start the journey, but we knew we had a lot of work to do. The challenge that was given to us as a project team looking at this is, how can you push neuroinclusion to have greater holistic outcomes for the company? So show me how you're going to use this to really push the culture of the organisation and make it much more inclusive. How are you going to address customer issues through this? And so we came up with a strategy, which we've summarised on this document. We set it out, right, first of all, knowing it was going to be a marathon and not a sprint, and it was going to take a number of years, and we needed to address this as a change program for Bank of Ireland, because it's easy to implement some of these things quickly, but the change doesn't stick for our colleagues. We set it out in 3 pillars. So first of all, to increase understanding in the organisation. And we realised that we would need to give a baseline level of knowledge to all of our colleagues in the company to be able to operate in a neuro-inclusive way. We are about to start training our people managers in the next 2 months. So managers, we don't ask managers or colleagues at Bank of Ireland to do anything that we don't equip them to do. We think that would be unfair. So we're going to do manager training to support managers, where a colleague discloses to them how to signpost the supports really well in the organisation. And it does tie into other work we're doing around mental health, because there is a big correlation between neurodiversity, masking, and mental health problems. We're also going to train all of our customer-facing colleagues in Q3 of this year, so how to serve neurodivergent customers brilliantly. So they're kind of some of the key things we're doing on understanding, and a lot of focus on that this year. Our second pillar is around infrastructure, so the infrastructure to operate neuro-inclusively in the company. And one of the things I would call out in this was putting our policy in place. So our policy is a real statement by the company on our commitment to neuro-inclusion, but it also asks for our colleagues to be committed, to take the training, to be conscious of their behaviours, to go on this learning journey with us. We're also doing a lot of work around our physical environment, so our offices. I don't know, some of you are from banks. The offices, since hybrid, it's very traditional desk, meeting room space. We want to equip our offices to have more sensory needs catered for, but also our branches, where our customers come in every day. And then finally, our culture pillar. The thing I would call out here is around destigmatizing this and making it normal to actually share in work like you would share other aspects of yourself. And one of the things we've put in place is a neuro-inclusion network or employee resource group for our colleagues. We don't do anything without the voice of our colleagues, and it was important to give them the opportunity to drive this change as well. So that is a summary of our strategy, and you want to talk about it a little bit from your perspective as well? Stand to the side. I'll be back, so no need to clap.
Yeah. Is it this one? Yeah. Okay. So this would kind of echo or bring back what Eimear just mentioned about the strategy, and it actually is even more than this, but we wanted to keep it light. But we started, the important thing, I guess, to say is often companies don't, they come to us and say, I don't know where to start. This is a topic I've never really fully engaged with. I don't know where to start. So, of course, the NIMA, the maturity assessment, was the start to understand where to go next. But then it's about also finding the right pace. So you don't run, you do the right things in the right order. So the first things we needed to get in place were things like the policy. So also knowing for you to know where you stand with neuro-inclusion, for employees to know how does Bank of Ireland, how should I feel about neurodiversity? What supports exist? What are the ways that we talk about it? and really solidify the supports that are already in place and also make them available for people so people actually know that they exist and they are also solid and able to serve neurodivergent colleagues. And also look at some of the processes that maybe are right now are not neuroinclusive yet. So that could be from kind of recruitment to career progression. Often there are little things that are very subtle that mean that someone who's neurodivergent might not be able to progress in their career or might not be able to get the same opportunity. So just dissecting and opening up these processes was important. And then later on, look at also other things like office and branch. At the same time, starting to then build the understanding with training and also bring in, like Eimear also said, the feedback and the voices of neurodivergent employees, not just coming from the top or from HR, but actually from the neurodivergent employees themselves, their experiences, and build those in some groups and so on. And also some communication internally and externally, talking about neuroinclusions, which happened in March with a launch of the neuroinclusion strategy. And then later on again looking outside customer and suppliers as well. Quindi farò in fretta, ma volevo solo parlarvi della sequenza di eventi. Insomma, abbiamo pensato bene a quale potesse essere la sequenza giusta di eventi, perché per esempio se uno dovesse iniziare subito con education senza avere i supporti, potrebbe succedere che tante persone parlano della loro neurodiversità col manager, il manager però non sa veramente come reagire e potrebbe anche avere un effetto negativo. Quindi era importante solidificare i supporti e la policy per sapere anche quale fosse il punto di partenza, lo stand di Bank of Ireland a riguardo. E guardare anche alcuni processi che forse al momento ancora non erano neuroinclusivi o avevano delle potenzialità di svantaggiare persone neurodivergenti in azienda. E allo stesso tempo cominciare a lavorare sulla conoscenza, sulla conversazione a riguardo e anche sulle voci dei dipendenti neurodivergenti stessi, per sempre dare un feedback su quello che sta succedendo. Quindi insomma la sequenza è importante e bisogna anche prendere il tempo di farlo. So, perfect. Hand back to you.
So, Bank of Ireland is probably 1 year into 3 years of work. It will never be done, but here is some of the initial impact after the first year. So Clementina mentioned that we did a launch event in March, and I'll talk just a little bit about that in one moment, but you go out and you invite your colleagues to a 45-minute panel discussion that you can join on Teams, and 15% join it on the day, and more than 5% have watched it back since. That was a pretty significant engagement for us, and it did prove those statistics that this matters to at least 1 in 4 people. We launched training, as I mentioned earlier, and over 3,000 colleagues took the training in the first 7 weeks. Okay, it just goes up every week since we launched that in March, so they want to learn. And they really want to be able to operate better with neuroinclusion. We are putting in place a neuroinclusion ambassador role. Some of your companies might have mental health first aider role. It's going to be like this. 42 colleagues have registered already, said they want to do that. We're aiming for 250 over the next couple of years. Lots of colleagues registered to lead that neurodiversity network or EORG. And then our external affairs team measured our average advertising value, right? Because we did an internal launch and we did an external launch as well. The reason we did the internal launch was because we had been working on this for 9 months. We wanted to do the work before we told our colleagues. And at that internal launch, we put out training, passport, policy, and really our statement around this work. At our external launch, we brought together advocacy groups for neurodiversity, auticon and ourselves, and actually some politicians as well, because this has become a really big issue for government in Ireland. Through our external launch, we got 14 pieces of national coverage in the media, in print, online, and they quantified it as an audience reach of more than 10 million. We don't have 10 million people living in Ireland, right? But this has gone really, really far. And the average value of that, we had no paid placement, was over €120,000. So just that association of Bank of Ireland, we did not do this for brand reasons, but the association of the company trying to impact society was a very positive one for the organisation. And then finally, these are some of our colleague reactions when they joined that panel discussion. And I suppose what we see here, for the most part, is pride. Whether you're directly affected or whether you're a colleague who's just interested, they were really proud that Bank of Ireland would take this on and have this ambition to be a neuro-inclusive organisation. And I think we're going to see that play out in other ways in the company going forward. I'll share just a couple of personal learnings, if that's okay. So I think, first of all, we worked with auticon for the expertise. I'm not an expert. I have a lot of passion, but I'm not an expert in this. A number of us in the human resources leadership team in the bank have children who are neurodivergent, but our first learning was being in school and being in the workplace are two totally different things, and we needed to think about this differently. It was not like the school environment and the supports that are needed there. We needed Auticon's help to think about this in an occupational way. The second one, as a learning we've mentioned already, including the voice of neurodivergent colleagues. I am not neurodivergent, and having their approval over what we do and how we change things is really key to being authentic around this. Also, managers. I think managers are just so important. They drive the experience for people every day, and they don't always get it right, but managers can be neurodivergent as well, and they need to be supported, and they need to be supported to support our colleagues. So the case for this, I think, is really clear. To become a more sustainable company, neuroinclusion is a strategic imperative. I entered an award a couple of weeks ago for the Ireland Chamber of Commerce, and when I was putting in the entry and it asked which of the sustainability goals does this relate to, I had a big choice because it definitely hit off 4 and probably could have hit off a 5th one. So I think it's also really clear that 10% of our colleagues are going to have their potential unlocked by this at work, but we're also going to become a destination for neurodivergent talent as a result of this, so bringing more skills into our company. And then lastly, I think it just leaves a legacy. I know my own lead, Matt, who was on the start of the video, he said, this was my career moment. I don't think there's anything more that is going to come beyond this and the impact that it has had on our organisation, and we're only 1/3 of the way. So it has been a kind of a very special moment, and it really has engaged our full leadership in this movement. So I will pause there. I hope it was okay. Please ask me to clarify anything you wish, and we're very happy to take questions as well.
Essendo il percorso di diagnostica deputato fondamentalmente alla persona, c'è una strategia aziendale che aiuta le persone a diagnosticare eventuali neurodivergenze?
Anche diagnostica di neurodivergenza.
Esattamente.
It's asking just generally just more for the auticon question about whether we also have diagnosed conditions. No, perché diagnosticare neurodivergenza, insomma, autismo, ADHD, eccetera, tanto è complicatissimo e spesso ci vuole un percorso anche per poterlo fare a lungo, ma poi chi aspetta la diagnosi spesso in Inghilterra almeno aspetta 2 o 3 anni perché c'è una lista d'attesa enorme e comunque insomma noi non abbiamo il medical know-how per poterlo fare. Però quello che forse è interessante da dire è che vogliamo allontanarci dalla medicalizzazione. Ovviamente per alcune persone è molto importante avere una diagnosi e lo è anche per avere accesso a supporti, però l'importante da capire nella conversazione della neurouniversità è che siamo tutti diversi e che ognuno ha dei bisogni diversi. Ovviamente chi è neurodivergente può avere dei bisogni particolari senza i quali non può lavorare, però comunque l'importante è capire le diversità di modo di interagire e di comunicare all'interno dell'azienda, e questo lo puoi fare anche senza diagnosi. So it's just saying.
It's
okay.
okay. I might add on though.
Yeah.
Just in our experience, particularly as we launched and started to communicate, is we've had more people disclosing at work that they have a diagnosis, and having some supports in place for them was quite important. We do also have people asking us to support them with diagnosis. We don't have a straight answer on that yet. As an employer, we're thinking through that, and I think it's fair to say we don't have all the answers figured out on every aspect. In Ireland, it's expensive to get diagnosis. It's quicker to go private, you say in Italy, yeah, and that's very difficult for people.
Volevo chiederle, in Irlanda a livello legislativo come vengono gestite le neurodivergenze, perché in Italia ad esempio noi abbiamo una condizione legislativa separata fra dislessia, autismo, se sono inserite generalmente nelle disabilità, e poi le aggiungo che la presidente dell'associazione irlandese della dislessia mi ha confermato il 10% e mi ha detto che anche lei dice che ha fatto un ottimo lavoro.
In the meantime, sort of research that it is in fact 10% at the
Rosie Bissett.
Rosie Bissett.
Rosie Bissett, che è la presidente dell'associazione irlandese per la dislessia.
Okay, for the Dyslexic Foundation in Ireland, was aware of your work and is complimenting you on the way down. And the second question was around the legal framework for neurodiversity. I can speak a lot about the UK, and I think Ireland falls within it, it aligns to it. So we have protected characteristics that are, ethnicity, socioeconomic, the various things under which disability is one of them, and neurodiversity falls under that, even though not everybody who's neurodiverse or neurodivergent feels disabled, but under the law they would have access under the disability characteristic. Quindi sì, neurodivergenze sono protette come disabilità, anche se ovviamente sono e il datore di lavoro ha una duty di supportare persone che che dicono di essere neurodivergenti. Poi c'è un po' come si dice? Una grey area a riguardo della diagnosi o no, della diagnosi o dell'autodiagnosi. So, talking about the duty of care that the employer has to anyone who discloses neurodivergence, but then of course there are some nuances around diagnosis or not diagnosis, but usually self-diagnosis is enough to qualify.
In Ireland, when we do our census, which is every 4 years, we don't even ask yet. So what does that say? So at the bank, we've implemented this inclusion passport. It's very like a reasonable accommodation passport, but we're going with the principle of you don't have to say why you need it, you just have to say what you need. And that doesn't, no matter what it's about. It could be about flexible working, it could be about menopause, it could be about fertility, it could be about accessibility. And we're trying to move away from then labels and just what do you need to thrive in this organisation, what will allow you to do the best work. And that's helping a lot, I think.
So the inclusion passport is for the persons to express their needs.
Yeah, it's intended to be a document to express your needs and then to agree the accommodations. We can do a workplace needs assessment to help around that. If somebody doesn't know quite what they need, they just know it's not working for them. And the intention is that the passport travels with you then. You don't have to explain if you move job, that if you don't want to, you don't have to keep explaining yourself or putting new things in place.
And how do you organize that? Is it a questionnaire someone has to fill in, or how does it work?
So the passport is literally a document sitting within a portal, and you just fill it out and complete it, and then if you are required to contact for occupational health or for employee relations reasons, that reminder is at the end of that form. So keep it simple.
Thank you.
And depending on the accommodation, some might be like equipment, some might be more around ways of working. You might have to agree them with different parts, of course, of the business, whether it's IT or your manager or so on. So it's about finding those agreements, and then this document is like a Bible of your agreements, which also keeps changing. You can keep reviewing it as well.
Volevo un attimo collegarmi alla prima domanda sulla diagnosi. Ho detto che la diagnosi è un processo lunghissimo e complicatissimo, proprio perché è lunghissimo. La stessa persona neurodivergente può essere autistica, ADHD, eccetera. Comunque prima di decidere di intraprendere una diagnosi formale ha bisogno lei stessa di fare un percorso, un attimo, di capire a cosa mi serve questa diagnosi, perché mi serve, perché la vorrei fare e sapere in maniera formale di rientrare in una certa categoria. Una cosa che ha detto prima Clementina del coaching clinic, che è un servizio offerto, magari Clementina, tu che sei esperta lo puoi dire due parole, che è comunque un servizio importante anche per questo processo di autoconsapevolezza.
Sì, allora talk quickly about the drop-in clinic. È una parte dei supporti che al momento stiamo offrendo per Banca Irlanda, soprattutto per, come dicevamo all'inizio, in questa fase di transizione in cui magari ancora non ci sono gli ambassadors, in cui ancora i manager non si sentono in grado così, di praticamente chiunque in azienda può iscriversi per parlare con dei nostri coach che ovviamente hanno un'esperienza di supportare persone neurodivergenti per una questione che può essere o per la propria, per i propri bisogni da persona neurodivergente o collega di persona neurodivergente, come posso supportare, cosa devo dire, cosa non dire, qualcuno me ne ha parlato, non so come rispondere, oppure sono il manager di qualcuno che potrebbe essere neurodivergente, che faccio, glielo dico, non lo dico. Tutte queste domande che sentiamo spessissimo possono venire da noi in una maniera confidenziale e rimane anche tra di noi, ovviamente tranne se ci sono delle necessità più ampie, però per avere questo supporto anche, diciamo, ad hoc, perché poi c'è anche il coaching invece più lungo termine che insomma, prevede un percorso, invece in questo caso è un drop in con degli esperti sulla neurodivergenza.